Today we are going to dive into Madness. Basking Rootwalla, one of the most beloved Pauper cards, hasn't been very good in the last few years. However, the latest Pauper set has given our lizard friend new cards, such as Sneaky Snacker and Molten Gatekeeper, that play perfectly with the discard strategy. Burning Inquiry, Faithless Looting, and Bitter Reunion are the main ways to discard our cards, while Scrapper Mud and Volarian Epicure, thanks to blood tokens, provide the extra discard potential this deck needs. Since this is an aggro deck, lands that deal damage to our opponents are a must-have for pushing our opponents into oblivion, in a deck ready to take on a Pauper League. We started strong by looting a Basking Rootwalla and a Sneaky Snacker on turn 1, while our opponent played a land and passed. We attacked, played a Faithless Looting to put our Fairy in play, and dealt 3 more damage with a Fiery Temper. Our opponent cycled for a land and used a Ponder before passing back. I used Unearth on the Gatekeeper, dealt extra damage with my Epicure, and attacked, putting my opponent down to 8. Ogre of Bolas revealed a Scred, so I attacked with my Fairy only. They killed it, and I used a Bitter Reunion to discard a second one and return both to the battlefield post-combat. I also pinged them twice with a land and a Vampire before passing. Our opponent passed again, and I attacked after playing a third Epicure. A cast into the fire killed both fairies, so I pumped my Walla, putting them down to 1. The opponent scooped. Post-sideboard, we brought some Pyroblast to protect our spells and trimmed some monkeys. I used one of my Burning Inquiry to discard some cards at random. I managed to hit a Walla, but more importantly, made them discard a land and a couple of spells. The opponent passed the turn after playing a land, and I did the same. Of course, my creature was killed, so I decided to play a land and pass. The opponent played a Monarch creature and I decided to kill it, hoping to draw a creature with haste. A looting revealed a Gatekeeper and I discarded it along with the Walla to add bodies to the field and steal the Monarch. They untapped and played a Serpent, so I played an Epicure and passed, drawing a card at the end of the turn. Thanks to the Monarch, a Breath Weapon killed the Epicure, but I managed to save the Walla by pumping it, making trades impossible for my opponent. They just passed. At the end of the turn, I cycled a Fiery Temper and dealt 3 damage to my opponent. I untapped and a Mod cycled a second Temper, but the opponent countered it. From there, I decided to play back-to-back monkeys and passed. The opponent drew 3 more cards with Lorien revealed. Back on my turn, I used the Burning Inquiry to look at more lands. In response, a Scred tried to kill a Mandrill, but I used Pyroblast to kill the Serpent. After looting away some cards, I attacked, putting them down to 5, and drew another card at the end. An Ogre of Bolas revealed a cantrip, and after casting a few more, they passed the turn back to us. With the help of a land, I put them down to 4, attacked and won match number 1. We played against Mono Blue Delver in match number 2. A Bitter Reunion drew me 2 cards while putting a Basking Rootwalla on the field. Of course, they flipped the Delver on turn 2 and attacked. I used Burning Inquiry and managed to discard a Fiery Temper, killing the Delver and removing some cantrips from my opponent's hand. They used a Brainstorm on their turn, and a second Delver joined the party. I used a Faithless Looting to discard a second Walla and Temper, killing the second Delver. I then pinged them with a land for 1 and gave haste to both my creatures, attacking for 2 more damage. The opponent played a Thought Scour, and a Serpent joined the party, so I played a Gatekeeper, a land, and passed. At the end step, the opponent used Brainstorm and attacked, so I took 5 damage. I then played a Mutt, and in response, they returned the Gatekeeper to my hand. I looted away the Fairy, put an Epicure into play before attacking, and pumped one of my creatures to deal 2 extra damage. Post-combat, I looted a land from my hand, returning the Fairy to the field, and passed. The opponent drew 2 more cards with Deep Analysis. I decided to attack in the air for the turn, but the opponent returned the Fairy to my hand. Post-combat, I played a Mandrill and my Burning Inquiry got countered. Still, this didn't matter as my opponent scooped after drawing 2 cards. For the second game, we brought in all 3 Pyroblasts to have more answers to their early Delver of Secrets. With the help of a Faithless Looting, I kept a strong hand and put 2 Wallas into play. The opponent started with a turn, 1 Delver, but failed to flip it on turn 2. A Spell Pierce countered a Bitter Reunion, and the Delver attacked for 3 on the next turn. I played a land and attacked, but unfortunately, both my Wallas were returned to hand with an Echoing Truth. The opponent untapped, played a Thought Scour, and a Tolarian Terror joined the board. They attacked for the turn. I decided that killing the Terror was critical, and a Pyroblast dealt with it. On their turn, the opponent played a second Delver and another Serpent, putting me down to 12. I played a Bitter Reunion to discard my Fairy and immediately put it into play. I then put a chump blocker in the form of an Epicure and tried to put both wallas into play with Burning Inquiry, but failed to do so. At least I got rid of a Murmuring Mystic. The opponent attacked, and I chump blocked, going down to 9. I untapped, played a Mod to discard, and played a Walla, and repeated this interaction once more to assemble some board presence. More importantly, I returned a second Sneaky Fairy to the field to hold down the Delver. The second Delver flipped, and the opponent attacked with everything. I traded a Fairy and chump blocked with the Mods, going down to 6. Back on my turn, a Gatekeeper met a counter, and an Unearthed Mod discarded a Fiery Temper, but the opponent had a Spell Pierce ready for it. All I could do was attack, play a land, and pass. The opponent attacked, and I went down to 1 while they kept a creature back for blocking. I also refused to discard the Walla because I wanted to unearth the Gatekeeper and deal extra damage when my creatures entered the battlefield. With the help of a Burning Inquiry, I was able to deal around 5 or 6 damage, just with the triggers, and attacked with the team. They blocked, and I won the game with little damage in match number 2. As good as our deck is against some matchups, it fell short against Mono Red when I made a fatal mistake in a tight game. I used all my End of Festivities to clear the board, only for them to top deck an Experimental Synthesizer. This allowed them to add multiple creatures to the field with Kuldota Rebirth, leading to my loss due to their card advantage. Similarly, I also lost a straight match against Rakdos Madness. The multiple life drain effects they run caused significant tempo loss on our end, despite having a better board presence. This brought us to our final match, to see if we could still profit from the deck. This game will be interesting as they are playing Orhzov Ephemerate, and you will soon see why. They played a Novice Inspector, and I used a Bitter Reunion to cheat a Sneaky Snacker into play. They played a Refurbished Familiar on their turn, and a surprise Walla joined the field. I attacked with both my creatures and pumped my Walla to deal extra damage. Post-combat, I used a Looting to discard a second Fairy, and another Walla joined the board. The opponent attacked for 2, and a Skyfisher returned the Familiar to their hand. In response, I played a Gatekeeper and passed. The opponent then played an Inspector and a Familiar and passed. A Mod dealt extra damage with the help of the Gatekeeper, and a land did the same before passing back. They attacked with the Core Skyfisher, and a Black Ninja joined the board, making me discard my other land. This was huge, as it allowed me to launch a big attack with my team, since there were no good blockers. I swung for the turn, pumped my Wallas to survive the trade, and dealt significant damage, putting them down to 8. They attacked and helped me discard the Unearthed creature. Unfortunately, the Boyuka Bog dealt with it, but a Mod dealt an extra damage, and I gave haste to the party to swing and win game number 1. Game number 2 started strangely as I had a very slow hand. Since I didn't have a clear sideboard to bring in, I ran it back as it was. I decided to play in a way that kept an open mana in case they played a Familiar, or an Okiva Gang, but I needed to start putting pressure on the board. Still, a Tiding Blade made me sacrifice my creature, and they attacked, putting me down to 17. On my turn, a Mod discarded a Fairy, and with the help of a Looting, I brought both back to the field, and a Walla also joined the party pre-combat. Unfortunately, I didn't keep an open red mana, and missed the opportunity to cast the Fiery Temper for cheap. The opponent then attacked and played a few more creatures on the board, making my attacks difficult. Still, I attacked with everything, pumped my Walla, and passed the turn after they chump blocked. They attacked, and I used a Lightning Bolt to put my opponent down to 11, thinking I could raise them. I then attacked, and after pumping my Walla, a Suffocating Fumes cleared my board. While I could rebuild, they won the tempo advantage with this play. On their turn, they attacked, played 2 more creatures on the field, and went up to 8. I decided to just play 1 Gatekeeper and stay back, but after they got rid of 2 of my creatures with back-to-back removals, I decided to concede and move on to game number 3. I brought in a Gorilla Shaman to see if I could deal with random artifact lands and blood tokens, but spoiler alert, this didn't come up. I kept a risky 1-lander and played an Epicure, hoping to find lands on my next draws, but luck was not on my side. I failed to draw lands, so all I could do was kill their bird and pass. On their turn, a Tiding Blade killed one of my creatures, and a second Glint Hawk returned the blade to their hand to kill another future one. I finally drew a bounce land and played an Epicure as fodder for the turn, and as expected, it died. Still, we hadn't taken much damage, and I could discard a Fiery Temper to kill the recently played Core Skyfisher. I also played a Gorilla Shaman to see what happens and passed. Of course, they killed it, and a Cleric removed it from my graveyard. All I could do now was play a Bitter Reunion, discard another Temper to kill a Glint Hawk, play a land, and pass. Tiding Blade finally came down, killing the Walla, and they attacked with 2 cards in hand, one of which was the Discard Rat, so I put a fairy and a land in the graveyard. I used a looting on my turn to kill the rat with a temper and put another Walla into play for free. On their turn, they played an Inspector and flipped their blade. I drew a Burning Inquiry for the turn, so I played the Epicure first and eventually attacked for 5. The opponent drew a card with the Clue token and passed. On my turn, I returned the Mutt from my graveyard, found a Mandrill, played it for its Delve cost, gave haste to my creatures and attacked, putting them down to 4. They untapped and gained some life, and a familiar made me use my Lightning Bolt, putting them down to 3. I top-decked a second Lightning Bolt and attacked to see what would happen. I managed to clear the board, and as expected, the Bolt won me the game and made a profit with this powerful and fun deck.